All right, we're back and it's good vibes time. And Debbie Cox de Nova is with us today, as always. And what a great topic today. Self inflicted. We all need help with this one. So, first of all, how are you, Debbie?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Is everything good today?
Everything's great.
Have you lost your cool today at
Not
any
yet.
point?
Not yet.
All right, today's topic, how not to lose your cool. God, we all need help with it.
We do. This is actually a very popular requested topic. People want to know, how do I not lose it on my kids? How do I not lose it in traffic with my partner? And
Especially since Hurricane Ida.
especially, and anytime you have any sort of external situation that creates extra pressure, if you haven't managed through your triggers, is what we're really talking about. We've had conversations about triggers before, but let's talk specifically about why people continue to not only stay in the pattern of their triggers, but actually get into a cycle, a downward spiral where they actually get even more triggered as time goes on. Okay, so when we're talking about triggers, there are trigger is actually a real common buzzword now. People use it to mean, offended or irritated, but we're going to talk about this in association to actual trauma or danger that has been experienced in the past. And what happens is something called, it's a psychological term called paired association. Okay, so we can think about the famous research study of Ivan Pavlov. You remember Pavlov's dog? You may have heard of this before.
Yeah.
So he was doing a study on digestion, and so he hooked up dogs to something that could measure their saliva output. And when he would bring the food out, what he noticed, of course, is that there was extra saliva output. That's important because it helps us digest, right?
Right.
So he was curious, though, to know about this output. So what he did is he took a neutral object, a bell, and he rang it. No saliva output. Now he started to take the food out, and right before feeding them, he would ring the bell. And over a very short period of time, what happened was that when the bell was rung and the food was brought, their saliva would come, right? Now he removed the food, just ring the bell. And what he noticed was, of course, just with the bell ringing, there was a paired association now to this once neutral object. The bell would ring, the dog would increase their saliva output. There was actually a physiological response to the bell. Now, after that, though, he actually took the bell and started ringing it without bringing the food. Saliva happened for a little while, but what he found out over a very short period of time is that when there was no food brought, they returned back to not having extra saliva output with the sound of the bell. So that's neuroplasticity. Our brain is always rewiring all the time. So if you are having trouble with whatever, stress, anxiety, anger, just know that there is hope. But you have to do something opposite of what most people are doing these days about their triggers. And one of the things we may have heard before is trigger warning, right? Somebody has a post that they're about to talk about something that may be a trigger, let me warn you so you can actually avoid this post. And they're using it at universities as well. The problem is when you avoid your triggers, you actually exacerbate the problem. And here's why. So maybe a soldier in war has seen and experienced a backpack being used as a bomb. Okay. They come back from war. Now there's a paired association to backpacks. So now when they see a backpack, which should be a neutral object, they respond in fear and avoidance, right? Now, bomb is an actual threat. Right. But a backpack is a perceived threat. And so what needs to happen is that he needs to be exposed to backpacks in its original context before the war. That doesn't happen through avoidance. In fact, if what you're doing is avoiding backpacks every single time or whatever, it may be, for me, I've had a phobia of frogs, just an unreasonable phobia of frogs, roaches. A lot of people with the roaches.
I hate roaches.
Right. So what happens?
Filthy little critters.
They are filthy little critters. But what happens is that every time you have a trigger from something and you avoid it, you move away from it, you distract yourself, you actually strengthen the trigger. Because what happens is there's kind of an anxiety cycle that happens, and the brain will actually say, as soon as you move away, "Whew, good thing we avoided that. We actually survived because we avoided it." And so it will actually strengthen that. Next time, let's tighten it up even more, because the brain is actually designed to help us avoid real threats, right? So you want to have an avoidance to rattlesnakes, for example,
Right.
right? That's a normal and natural thing. Bombs, you definitely, if you see a bomb in the street, you definitely want to be moving in the opposite direction. But the problem is that that gets hijacked, right? And then you get these negative associations. And when you avoid or distract yourself from your triggers, your brain goes, it is a darn good thing we avoided that. Next time, let's go up a little bit more.
And as you go through business, if a lot of business people here too, Cat 5 storm comes in, I can sit on the desk for hours because there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
It's not a careless act. It's just an act of nature.
Yeah.
But in business, if you get careless mistakes, drives me crazy.
It does. And a lot of people will say, well, I have this generalized feeling of anxiety or stress. I can't really pinpoint it. And if you really unpack it, because a lot of people will feel that, but then they'll go into their avoidance patterns, either phone, social media, whatever. If you actually sit with it, what you realize is there are actual micro threats. Like if you are late for work, your work is associated to your survival because that's how you earn a living.
Right.
So these little micro threats will actually get wired in, and the more you avoid, the deeper it gets, to where eventually you're actually becoming anxious about your anxiety. What if I go out there and I see a backpack, and then I'll get anxious, and then I'll have this thing, and then it spirals down, and it can become
I'm never
depression.
late for work because I'm at work all the time.
True.
Everyone my age who owns a business now, we've had to morph from no cell phones. Just come to work on time, do your job, follow your thing, focus on your job, to beep, beep. We went through the beepers. We went through all kind of stuff. Now we're at the cell phones. It drives people my age crazy. How do you do the how do you do it? Help us out.
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, again, this goes back to sitting with your emotions and actually leaning into your emotions versus pushing away from them, because there's real powerful information that's coming through. All of our emotions serve some sort of purpose. Anger is a way to disrupt things that are a violation to your standards, right? Fear can actually move you toward creating a safer experience for yourself. So everything creates stress can actually help you be more productive in life, right? So we just don't want it to be hijacked. And the way to do that is to have a gradual exposure to your triggers in a way that's safe. Only works if you're in a safe environment. So if you actually have something where it's actual PTSD, or severe anxiety, you may want to work with a licensed therapist or someone who's qualified to help you. Or you can, if you're just experiencing anger or an association to a specific emotion that doesn't feel good, recognizing that you can actually become addicted on a physical level, physiologically, you can actually become addicted to the emotions, and to where now you're creating an addictive experience where your brain is literally looking for scenarios to trigger that emotion so that you can get a hit of it. Okay.
Let me tell you something. I fell in an elevator years ago, 4 stories. The brakes were very shoddy on it.
I remember this.
Got out the elevator. You know the first thing I did?
What?
I got back on the other elevator and went up.
That's it. That's exactly what you
I
should
said,
do.
if I don't get on that elevator, I might never get on one again.
I have a similar story about being stung by jellyfish while I was snorkeling. I was like, I know I'm going to have to jump in and just get stung by these baby jellyfish just so that I don't create a negative association to this experience. And that's how you do it. But you want to do it in a gradual. You don't want to put yourself into the panic zone, right? You don't want to stay in the comfort zone.
Right.
That's avoidance. You don't want to go into the panic zone. You want to go in the growth zone. So that's just a little bit of discomfort. It's a gradual experience. So if you think about, rescue puppy, right? Unfortunately, so in some instances, and everybody's witnessed these little videos of these puppies that are rescued, and they were obviously raised, or they were being taken care of in an abusive home. So when they see the human hand, there's a negative association to the human hand. Even if it's coming to pet them, they wince, they move away, they might growl, right? And so the way to help the puppy through this is to give it a gradual disconfirming experience of the human hand. Can the human hand be dangerous? Absolutely. Some people have anxiety and stress around cars, or there could be actual threats to it. So it's kind of like taking yourself into the experience and talking yourself through. So it's kind of managing your mindset around it, right? Accepting what is and going, okay, this actually I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm feeling really angry. But my values tell me that, like, I need to drive to work. I might feel anxious in the car, but I need to drive to work because it's a value of mine to take care of my family. I'm going to go to work. Or now with cell phones, there is an addiction happening with adults, children, you know, and that is a real thing. And
Yeah, my
so,
big thing is how do you concentrate on your job if you're on your cell phone?
yeah, yeah,
And that is definitely a generation gap because even the youngest of the kids now.
yeah.
If I always tell them, what happens if China does an electron bomb and all the cell phones go out?
Oh, we're in
One
trouble.
kid looked at me the other day and said, Mr. Martin, I would die.
Yeah.
I go, I think you would.
They actually feel like
Yeah.
they would.
Yeah.
It's a huge addiction. So and that goes, this is really important because that's an important issue for us to address as a society, right? But we can only most powerfully address it if we are in a regulated place. If we're dysregulated and we're pushing against, especially with this new generation, we push against these kids who are addicted to their cell phones, and we go from a place of reactivity, then in all likelihood will raise their defenses and cause more of this, right?
Should
Versus
be a place you could use it and a place you can't use it.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And so if we're able to regulate our nervous systems around and start to create a new relationship to ourselves, where it's like, no, this doesn't trigger my anger, right? Like I feel into the anger and why, and I'm going to validate that. But I'm also going to regulate my nervous system using breath, using some of the tools that we've talked about before, where we calm the body. Now I'm online enough with my prefrontal cortex so that I can respond to this and create new boundaries, because it is important to create boundaries, to manage your mindset, to manage the narrative, and actually take action, especially when something is a violation of your standards or it's not working for you in your life.
Remember the old story? Two kids are playing in the backyard and there's two rubber, red balls out there.
Yeah.
They fine. They're happy. You go out there and you take one of them away. Two kids, one red ball. There's a war.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never know what that an association to a red ball over time could happen.
Or they
isn't it?
just want it because the other one might get it.
Exactly. Human nature, right? So it's
yeah.
really understanding and being compassionate with the human experience, because we're prone to all sorts of things, addiction. But the main takeaway is this: to remember that when you avoid, you actually make these patterns worse, okay, just by default. So the thing to do about it is to look, examine, be mindful, talk with a friend, express your emotions in a healthy way, and then take action so that you can change the external environment in such a way that it actually works without you reinforcing a negative relationship to an emotion that's not working for you.
And real quick, I've heard restaurant owners tell me that kids have quit because they can't bring their cell phones in the store with them and keep it in the pocket.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, the power of addiction.
Yeah. All right. Debbie, great topic. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
All right. There you have it, right here on Good Vibes. We'll be back next week. Don't go away.